love that. Thank you. Thanks for your response. And here we are. We're looking once again at John's Gospel. And, you know, Dave Cormandy came in early this morning. He says, he hadn't been here for a while. He says, you know, your Bible study is kind of like a train station. If you miss one train, you just wait and you come back and you really haven't missed a thing. So just wait for the next train. So I take that as a compliment.
No, that's all right. That's good.
I know we move really slow, and I've said this numerous times. You guys have given me a tremendous gift to be able to do this work that I really enjoy doing, and be able to stand and share things that are important to me, and you guys listen. And so, you know, there must be some value here. It's been going almost 30 years, and so, you know, we're not out to we're out to look at the text and really be where we are at any given time, to try to, you know, capture what is being said. And so movement and conquering the Gospel of John is not our objective. So, but we're moving pretty good here. We're in chapter 4. Last time I think was the introduction of John chapter 4. I can't recall if we've had one or two sessions before. We'll be looking at 15 through 20 this morning. So if someone could get ready to read that would be helpful. But last time we saw Jesus engaging conversation with this woman at the well. This is a very familiar story to all of us. And what I want to say firsthand is that the familiarity of this story in itself filters how we read the story. So, with that in mind, let's look at this. Jesus engages this woman in conversation. And last time, we spent most of our time in table discussion, which I think we will today as well. And what we learned from that table discussion is that, first of all, Jesus moves towards a known and deeply painful social rift by asking the woman for a drink. He's moving forward. The natural response of us human beings, the natural tendency is that if there's a difference, if there's a social rift, remember we've introduced the idea of the blues and the reds, and when I let me just make sure, I know I picked blue and red just because they're two primary colors. I was not thinking of the two parties.
Right.
Because I was thinking, gee, if I could take this somehow and take blue and red and make purple, that'd be cool. But I don't know if I'm going to do that. But we're talking about blues only see blues, reds only see reds, and all we have to do is just look at the news to...
Never heard of such a thing.
But the natural tendency of us human beings in a rift such as this, blues and reds, is separation. That is part of the jungle, the backdrop of the jungle, and we're seeing it right here before our eyes in John chapter 4. Jesus is taking the first move, and he steps towards that rift by asking a woman, this woman, marginalized person, for a drink. The woman responds in cautious surprise, asking, "Why are you doing this? Why are you, a Jew, talking to me, a Samaritan woman?" Okay. Jesus did something that was out of the ordinary. And she asks, why? Jesus then draws the woman even in closer by making the offer of living water. He's taking physical water from Jacob's well, and he's transforming the language into what I'm offering you is something living water. He makes a correlation, and now he's bringing her in closer in conversation. The woman then responds in confusion. And I'm putting a note here, much like Nicodemus did in John chapter 3. Jesus is using language that is enticing but yet confusing. It's people, Nicodemus and the woman at the well are trying to connect the dots. What on earth is he talking about here? But it's interesting. It's engaging, and we know it's engaging because it furthers conversation. So it's much like living water or born again. Jesus is talking in metaphors and engaging conversation. Her mind then immediately attempts to profile Jesus in order to place him into her self-constructed, and I'm using this metaphor, ladder of importance. Through his language, and I think this is also common to us humans, is that when we're filtering is a good word, new information, we want to know, who are you? Who are you? And then, who are you? The answer to that question will then allow me to profile and place that other individual on my ladder of importance. How much are you worthy of my attention to listen to? Are you high or low? You are not greater than our father Jacob, are you? You know, she's profiling him and placing him in a pecking order, in a letter, on a ladder of priority, is in my mind. So, and that's verse 12. And then Jesus then states the value of his offering by providing a simple comparison of the two types of water. This is the benefit by which you will, if you drink from this water, known fact, you're going to be out here either tomorrow or later on this afternoon to get more of the same. The water that I will give you is living water and will cause you never to thirst again. That is a big promise. A big difference. So, at the end of that, 15 through 20, at the end of verse 12, or that would be 14, verse 14. We're going to pick up now at the end of that. She obviously, this sounds like a great deal. I would like the water. Would somebody read verses 15 through 20?
The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I will not be thirsty or have to come here to draw water." Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come here." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband.' For you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true." The woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship."
Okay, good. And just to rewind for a minute, I in my mind, I confused verse 19 with verse 12. Because what does he say in verse 12? Or what does she say in verse 12?
Are you greater than our father Jacob? He gave us the well and drank from it.
Okay. So he did say, okay, so anyway, let's move on. Okay, we're going to look at 15 through 20. And here we go. It's widely held by interpreters that once, not all interpreters, but most of us land that once the woman asked Jesus for his living water, he then focuses the spotlight on her sin. Because he is all knowledgeable, and he uses a gift that we would call word of knowledge. go call your husband, and that is intended to focus attention onto her sin issue, which must be addressed. Now, this is where we impose our belief system onto this, that this sin issue has to be addressed before or contingent upon her receiving the living water. That is kind of how most interpreters look at this. This view is so widely held that we bring this assumption to the story, categorizing this woman as morally loose, obviously in need of salvation, and thus placed in the order the other group. Now, before you guys tilt on me, this idea of polarization. So, what I'm attempting to show here is that you and I read the text with pre-filtered glasses. And you said, well, obviously she's morally loose. And if we take that position, we read the text as, okay, Jesus is in my in-group because I'm part of that. She is obviously a person in the other group, and he's obviously going to evangelize her. Okay, I understand that. But my question this morning is, what are we missing if we interpret it like that? Okay, what are we missing? I don't, it could be that way. Yes, Dick?
There's no us and them. We're all at the same level.
Well,
We're all broken,
yeah.
and so we have that totally in common. We don't point our fingers at other people. That's one of the things I really appreciate about our pastor. He makes that emphasis almost every week, that there's no us and them. We're all at the same level.
Well, I couldn't agree more that we are all at the same level. I agree with that. So, the truth is, we know very little about this woman's struggle to survive in a female one-down society at the end of the first century. We are so far removed from that culture, we don't know. We don't know. In addition, Jesus does not pursue this avenue of thought, nor does he instruct the woman like he did elsewhere to the woman caught in adultery. We know that in the text, go and sin no more. We think he's using sarcasm. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You don't have one husband, you've had 5. And I'm not criticizing that, but what I'm asking is, if we impose that moral looseness on this woman, what are we missing in the story? See, that's all I'm asking, and you're going to have a chance to talk about it. So, let's slow it down for a minute. Let's slow this text down, the story. And through our discussion, let's attempt to understand what John is expressing, the writer, to his first century readers. We will then, if we can somehow get a closer handle on what John is trying to express through this story within the context of what we've already learned in the first 3 chapters, we will then be able to discern meaning for us living in the 21st century. And guys, I'm not looking for one thing. I'm not assuming we're wrong. We could be absolutely right. But let's go to the tables and let's discuss this and see what we can come up with. Yeah, Bill.
One other thing I noticed is the very first line of this text, where the woman says, "Sir, give me this living water." I wish I could hear the tone of the voice, because that could be, she didn't just jump into it and say, "Oh wow, this is the right thing." That could have been sarcastic. I don't know, because she doesn't even assess he's a prophet until after this discussion. So it's like, I could give you living water. He's still a stranger. He's still sitting there. it's like, does she automatically assume that's right, or is he
Yeah.
challenging her? Says, yeah.
Right, those are the kind of questions we want to ask, yeah.
Yeah, did she roll her eyes or what?
Yeah, yeah. This is exactly the kind of discussion let's have. So let's really enjoy this time together and talk about this. All I'm doing is suggesting that because of our backgrounds, and I think, I don't know all your backgrounds, but just say me. I have imposed my filters on this for years and years. I've taught this as a means of evangelism. How he used, she's going to change the subject. And our fathers worshipped in this mountain and so forth. And I've always looked at that a certain way. But let's go back to square one, slow it down, and let's talk about this in light of what we think John is trying to express. And so our table time this morning is this. What do you think is happening at this juncture in the story? And I'm talking about the woman at the well. And it's within the context of the larger story of John's gospel. How then does what is happening relate to the woman's response to Jesus and her follow-up question regarding a proper place of worship? Again, I've always interpreted it as getting the monkey off my back. I don't want to talk about me. Let's talk about religion. That's how I've always interpreted this. So let's have some fun with it, and let's go to our tables, and then hopefully we can come back in maybe about 15 minutes and just kind of get some thoughts. So I'll leave this slide up here. Have some fun.